I don't care if I look like crap. That's not the important part of this. Countries. Aren't they a thing in a place, in a small part of the world that doesn't want to be invaded at all? Countries are an organization of groups formed together, recognized by the United Nations. But not every country is recognized by the United Nations, and people have found loopholes to that, and so micronations. People that just want to make their own country for their own specific reasons, and there are hundreds of thousands of them, the majority of them not knowing how a micronation actually works. So, do you want a really good example of a good micronation? Check out Malaysia, Ruritania, or even one that just came out and now is starting to get a lot more popular, Stomaria. But do you know what's a bad example? Communist countries on r/micronations, and I'm gonna say it instead of yelling at them, telling them how awful they are. I'm a kind person and I'm going to help them out. For those that came from r/micronations, please listen up, because I'm going to help you out. I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm going to make a separate video of a communist micronation, because there are so many of them, and they fail a lot, because they don't actually know what communism is, so I'll make a separate video on that entirely. So if you are a communist micronation, you can still watch this video, but I'm not going to mention communism in any way whatsoever positively. Screw you. For every country, there is always some kind of leadership that goes towards it. What kind of hierarchy are you focused on? Well, there are plenty of things. You could try the obvious and do a monarchy. And then there are some who take creative liberties and say, I'm the main leader, but I'm not a monarchist. I have full power of the entire nation. That's called a dictatorship. I'm sorry, I mean an autocracy. Monarchies and dictatorships have one thing in common. They're autocracies, ruled by one person and ruled by one party specifically. And a good example of an autocracy is Russia. It's a one-party state ruled by one person, and it's a really good start for people who are starting it alone. No problem, no biggie. But if you're having like a group of friends and you want to organize some kind of government system there, an autocracy can still work, but also an oligarchy, which is ruled by a select group of men. Let's say you want to take it even a level further than an oligarchy. Let's say, oh, this whole republic idea is actually quite good, and it can work with more than one person. If you're just one person who wants to be a republic, at this point you might as well be an autocracy. It is the most complex government system that a micronation can do. However, if it is done well, it can be one of the most organized and most successful micronations in the world. Okay, let's say that you just go for the obvious and say, okay, I'm going to be an autocracy because I want to rule by myself, or I want to be an oligarchy because my friends are interested in it too. Now it's time to decide on one of the hardest choices for a micronation: ideology. And there are so many, I'm just going to condense them down to the most... Wait, hang on. I messed up this part. Please give me a second. The most important part of making a country is ideology. And I messed up this part. I had a total of 7 ideologies that I wanted to present. I did not present them correctly, nor did I have enough knowledge for it. So please excuse me as I now go through the list properly. So let's start with left-wing ideologies that are common within micronations. A social democracy can work in every government system. Usually when change comes, it comes from the people first, not from the government. The government validates it. Every law that's usually made is accepted by the people as well. Socialism is when the elite doesn't have much power compared to the average worker. The elites usually get to live in luxury, but they don't have a say in politics because, they're too rich to even understand anything. And then there's the weird one now, which is called environmentalists. Environmentalists are basically, they mainly focus on life and stuff. Plants, save the earth. That's basically it. Conservatism is your average right-wing party, and that's really much I can say. If you can think of what a right-wing party, like an average, moderate, okay right-wing party, that's basically what conservatism is. I can't explain it anymore. They're usually religious, and they kind of have this traditionalist style. Not as much compared to the next one, traditionalism, which is a culture-focused ideology. And that overall just speaks for itself. If you like your culture, then traditionalism might be your thing. And the last one I had is reactionary. A nation that is not a fan of change, and I'm taking the Russian Empire for a really good example. I like to reference Russia a lot, don't I? I have a problem. But back to the point,
Russia hasn't changed a lot of its laws, and when they do, it's supposed to change it just a little bit, but keep most things alive. Or just make a change that might never even happen for decades. Thanks, Russia. And lastly, there's the odd one out, which I like to call libertarianism. They mostly focus on the freedoms of a lot of the things, to be honest. They want to understand how far human rights can be taken, and libertarianism would usually be your main go-to. Okay, tangent over, back to the video.
Woo! Alright, you got ideology down, now you need some kind of code of law. That's usually formed on some kind of writing on a paper, or some kind of scripture on a stone, stating, this is the name of the country, here are the laws. That's what most code of laws work, and they're usually commonly called constitutions. Thanks, United States of America, for changing the word code of law to constitution. This one is entirely optional. What about a theme song of your country? These are called anthems. Anthems play during, like, let's say, sports games, and when a foreign delegate comes to your country, you must play their anthem if they have one. Okay, that should be everything on the basis for you to finally declare independence. I'm gonna head inside now. Alright. So, you have just declared independence. What will you do now?
Excuse me, sir.
Ah, yes. Stupid Jimmy.
Can we start an alliance?
Okay, so now we're getting to the part where most people screw up. No, you don't make alliances. That's not how diplomacy works. In diplomacy, yes, you can make friends with other micronationalists, but alliances will fall as soon as they start. It will not go well. So what can you do? Well, good question. When you're at the point of independence, now you can start to get creative. These examples can simply be making a website, creating an army, navy, or even an air force, and maybe if your micronation is an entire town, you can do news specifically on the town itself. Take for example our newsletter called the Royal Times, which focuses on everything in the hometown, but not always specific to the micronation. This will give you even more respect to those who pay attention. And you want to know my favorite thing to do when it comes to creative design for micronations? Art and history. When you're a micronationalist, you're not going to get it the first time. I didn't. I absolutely didn't. My first micronation that I did was something called the Moral State, and that failed horribly because I didn't understand the rules. Now I do, and I'm able to show it off to everyone else thanks to it. And in the end, it's up to you. Oh, no. It's up to you. Yeah, you, the guy in the computer who's not doing anything right now. Get up and do something. That's what a micronationalist does. They do stuff. And you know what a micronationalist doesn't do? Sit on Reddit and argue about how they want to declare war on every micronation in the world because they want to be cool and shit. That's not a micronationalist. That's an egotist. With that said, I'll be continuing to make content like this to help out other micronationalists in times of need. So stay tuned for more, and thank you for watching. I hope you learned a valuable lesson about making a really good micronation. And screw you, communist micronations.